Everyone has had one. The day everything fell apart at once. The day you got news you couldn't take back. The day you lost something or someone and didn't know how to keep breathing afterward. You remember exactly where you were standing. You remember the temperature of the air. Some part of that day never fully left you. Now picture that same kind of day, but it's 50,000 years ago. No phone to call someone, no therapist next week, no bed to disappear into for 3 days. Just you, the open land, and whatever just happened to you. What did ancient humans actually do when their world collapsed? Not the big historical disasters, not famines or ice ages or migrations, the personal ones. The day a hunter didn't come home, the day a child died in the night, the day someone was cast out, or betrayed or attacked, or simply broke in a way nobody saw coming. Every single person who ever lived has had at least one day like this, and ancient humans had no modern tools to survive it. So what did they actually do? This is one of the most overlooked questions in all of human history, and the answer says something remarkable about what gets a person through the worst moment of their life. Let's start with the most immediate response, because the body reacts before the mind even catches up. When something catastrophic happens, the human body floods with stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, the heart races, the senses sharpen. This response is ancient, older than humans themselves, built for one purpose: survive the next 5 minutes. For an ancient human on the worst day of their life, that response still fired exactly the same way it does in you, which meant the first thing that happened, almost universally, was action. Not reflection, not processing. Action. You did not sit with your grief in the open. You moved. You got back to camp. You found the rest of your group. Because in a world full of predators and exposure, falling apart in place was dangerous. The body's first instinct on the worst day of your life was not to fall apart. It was to get somewhere safer first and fall apart later.
And falling apart later mattered, because the next thing ancient humans did was something modern people have almost completely lost. They let themselves be loud. Anthropologists studying grief and crisis responses across surviving hunter-gatherer societies have documented something called ritualized wailing, loud, physical, unrestrained expressions of pain, often performed communally, not quiet crying into a pillow alone, audible, visible, witnessed grief. In many traditional societies, this wailing follows patterns, almost like a song, passed down and recognized by everyone in the group. When someone hears it, they know exactly what it means and exactly what to do. They come. This is the opposite of how most modern people handle their worst day. We isolate. We text one person quietly. We try to keep functioning in front of others. Ancient humans did the reverse. The worst day of your life was not a private event. It was a signal. And the entire point of the signal was to bring people running. Because the third thing that happened, almost immediately, was that the person was not left alone. This is one of the most consistent patterns across every hunter-gatherer society ever studied. When catastrophe hit one person, the group absorbed them, physically. Someone sat next to them. Someone touched them, an arm around the shoulder, a hand held. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have found that physical touch during acute distress isn't a kind gesture on the side. It is the primary intervention. Before words, before advice, before anyone tries to fix anything, someone simply makes sure your body is not alone in space. There's a reason for this that goes deeper than comfort. Human nervous systems regulate each other. This is a real, measurable phenomenon researchers call co-regulation. A panicked nervous system calms down faster in the presence of a calm one. Your heart rate, breathing, and stress hormones can actually synchronize with someone sitting close to you. Ancient humans did not know the neuroscience. They just knew that leaving someone alone on the worst day of their life made things worse, and staying close made things bearable. So they stayed close for hours, sometimes for days.
Then came food, and this detail surprises people every time they hear it. Across an enormous range of cultures, in moments of intense personal crisis, someone else feeds you. Not because you can't physically lift food to your mouth, because grief, shock, and trauma shut down the desire to eat, and a body in crisis still needs fuel to survive the crisis. So someone else made sure you ate anyway. They put food directly in your hands, sometimes directly in your mouth.
This wasn't treated as strange or babying. It was treated as essential. You take care of the body while the mind is too overwhelmed to take care of itself. After the immediate response came something slower and in some ways more important. Ancient humans did not expect a person to simply move on. They built time into the process. Many traditional societies have formal mourning periods, sometimes lasting weeks, sometimes longer, during which a grieving or traumatized person is excused from their normal responsibilities. They are not expected to hunt. They are not expected to perform their usual role. The group absorbs that gap. Other people quietly take on the work that person would have done, without resentment, without keeping score. Because everyone in the group understood something simple. Someday it will be me. This is strikingly different from how a lot of modern life works, where people are expected to return to full functioning almost immediately after devastating news. Ancient social structures built recovery time directly into the fabric of daily life, not as a luxury, as a requirement. Now here is where it gets even more interesting, because ancient humans also had something we have mostly lost, a shared language for catastrophe. Every traditional society studied by anthropologists has stories, explanations, frameworks for why terrible things happen, spirits, ancestors, natural forces with intention behind them. To modern ears, these explanations can sound primitive, but functionally they did something extremely important. They gave catastrophe meaning. A meaningless tragedy is almost impossible for the human mind to hold, but a tragedy that fits into a larger story, even a frightening one, becomes something the mind can carry. Ancient humans were not naive about suffering. They built entire belief systems specifically to make suffering survivable.
And this is connected to something else ancient humans did that modern people rarely do anymore. They told the story out loud, repeatedly, to the group. In many traditional cultures, after a personal catastrophe, the person who experienced it is expected, eventually, to tell what happened. Not once, multiple times, to different people, around the fire, in public. This might sound exhausting to a modern person used to telling their story once and then trying to never think about it again. But researchers studying trauma processing have found something important. Repeated, witnessed storytelling, where the story is heard and acknowledged by other people, appears to help the brain process traumatic memory differently than memories that are never spoken aloud. The story stops being a thing trapped inside you and becomes a thing the group now holds with you. This matters because trauma, left completely unspoken, tends to stay raw. Trauma that is spoken, witnessed, and folded into the group's shared memory tends to soften over time. Ancient humans, without any psychological theory at all, had stumbled onto something true. Telling the story to people who will not look away is part of how the wound starts to close. There is one more piece, and it might be the most quietly profound part of all of this. Ancient humans did not expect a person's worst day to define them. Because the group depended on every member, there was enormous pressure. Not to punish someone for falling apart, but to help them come back. The same person who had the worst day of their life might be hunting again in a month, laughing again, telling the story themselves by the fire, with less weight in their voice than the first time they told it. The group needed them whole again, and so the group worked, deliberately and collectively, to help that happen. This is something easy to forget in a world that often treats people's worst moments as permanent labels. Ancient humans understood something practical, and in its own way, deeply humane. A person having their worst day was not broken forever. They were a person in crisis who needed the group, and the group's job was to bring them back. So if you have ever had the worst day of your life and felt the overwhelming urge to find people, to be touched, to be fed, to cry loudly instead of quietly, to tell the story again and again until it stopped hurting quite so much, that is not weakness. That is not oversensitivity. That is hundreds of thousands of years of a system that worked. You weren't supposed to survive your worst day alone. No one ever was. And somewhere in you, underneath everything modern life has taught you about staying composed and handling things privately, there is still a person who knows exactly what to do when everything falls apart. Find people. Let them hold you. Let them feed you. Tell them what happened, and let them carry it with you until you can carry it alone again. That is not a coping mechanism you have to learn. It is one you inherited.